Hey guys, I'm Maylin Dovan, certified athletic therapist and founder of Rehab-U Movement and Performance Therapy. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This week we're going to talk about ankle mobility and how it impacts high ankle sprains. And I maybe want to preface this video by talking a little bit about injury prevention. I know a lot of people cringe or criticize when they hear the words injury prevention. So here's my philosophy. When we talk about movement optimizations, we're talking about providing athletes with more options to respond to motor problems, right? More options to solve motor problems, which is essentially what they're doing in the sports environment. We're also talking about optimizing their capacity to absorb, distribute, and transfer forces. So the more constraints an athlete has, the less options they have to solve problems, and the less efficient they are biomechanically to absorb, distribute, and transfer forces. So whenever we're working on removing constraints and providing an athlete with more resources, we're actually doing injury prevention, from my point of view, all right? So we're decreasing that risk of injury. So let's bring our athlete in so we can get to the topic of this week, which is ankle mobility and how it can impact high ankle sprains. Hey guys, thanks for watching our videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, so the biomechanics of the foot and ankle are pretty complex. We're talking about multi-axial movements occurring simultaneously. All right, so when an athlete decelerates, what we get is an external rotation torque on the foot. So as he decelerates on that ankle is externally rotating, and the ankle absorbs those forces with some dorsiflexion, some abduction, and some eversion. And that dorsiflexion, abduction, and eversion is really important in helping the ankle absorb those rotational torques. If the ankle is rigid and can't pronate. So dorsiflexion, abduction, and eversion is what we commonly refer to as pronation. And I know in the training world, you've heard me talk about controlling excessive pronation so that we don't get excessive knee valgus, right? But remember that lack of mobility also isn't stability. So if the ankle is rigid in that sports environment, if that ankle is rigid and it can't pronate, so it's not getting that dorsiflexion, eversion, abduction, that means that that rotational torque is not being absorbed there, so we're going to get more external rotation force at the ankle, right? And that external rotation force, that's the mechanism of a high ankle sprain, so a syndesmotic sprain. So if we have a rigid ankle that doesn't dorsiflex enough, doesn't evert enough, we really need to work on those restrictions to decrease the risk of a high ankle sprain and to improve that foot-ankle complex's ability to absorb and distribute those forces coming in on deceleration and on change of direction. So the first thing we want to do if we have a restricted ankle is we want to increase that mobility, increase that range of motion. So we can start with banded traction, which will be great for just getting global mobility in that ankle. So down on the ground, we're just going to hook that band on the calcaneus and then across the front of the foot, across the top of the foot. So we really get that ankle pulling down, and he's gonna back up, create tension in that band, keep that ankle dorsiflex, and he's just gonna get traction coming from the band. And you can play around with getting that band a little bit lower. What you really want is for it to be really distracting that ankle joint, okay? So he can back up as much as he needs to get that traction, and then we stay there for typically mobilizing for 1 to 2 minutes. All right, next what we want to do is we also want to get that dorsiflexion and eversion range of motion. So we're going to use a little bit of an incline, over here, and then we're going to get that foot in the band again, and we're going to place that band underneath the malleoli, and then he's going to get traction that's pulling him behind and diagonally. So we're gonna get him, actually gonna get you a little bit more forward so that band is really pulling in a diagonal direction. There you go. And now he's on that incline, so he's getting that little bit of ankle eversion. He's got the band pulling him into, pulling that talus posteriorly and pulling him into eversion as well. And then from there, he can just kind of dorsiflex and play around with that motion. So getting that ankle on that bit of an incline, getting that eversion, and then moving around, playing with those angles of dorsiflexion. Now he can bring the knee towards the big toe, bring the knee towards the small toe, and playing around. And again, mobilizing for 1 to 2 minutes total. One really important function of the ankle, obviously, is distributing those ground reaction forces, but it also has to react to uneven surfaces. So it really needs to have good proprioceptive capabilities. It really needs to have a low threshold to detect passive motion. So whenever we're increasing range of motion at the ankle, like we just did using our band traction exercises, we then want to follow up with more. So anytime we've increased range of motion, we then want to kind of load that ankle and kind of load the visual, vestibular, and the proprioceptive system together and create a little bit of movement, right, that the ankle is going to have to react to. So we're kind of like populating that range of motion. I really like this tracking exercise because it loads the visual and vestibular system, and then the ankle is reacting to movement that's going on, movement of the body. So we're kind of recreating that idea that the ankle is sensing that passive motion and having to react for him to keep his balance. So he's gonna hold the ball in one hand, and what's important, he's standing on the one foot, and he's gonna look at the ball as he passes it over his head and switches to the other hand. And the only time he's putting that right foot down is if he's really off balance, because we don't want him hopping around on that left ankle, right? We just want him to be working on keeping that balance. Now, because his eyes are following the ball, that's loading the visual system. Because his head is moving following the ball, we're loading his vestibular system. And because the ankle is reacting to that change of position of the center of mass, we're getting those proprioceptive capacities of the ankle working as well. Again, now you could load this for 30 seconds, 2 sets of 30 seconds for a total time again of about 1 minute. So obviously we don't stop there, right? Ideally, we also want to load the ankle so that we can strengthen the range of motion, strengthen the structure, the tissues, and expose that ankle to stresses similar to what it's going to face in the sports environment. So that will be the topic of another video. But guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see the next video, do something for me. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you help me out and you make sure you don't miss the next videos.